Election day is just 1 week away. I'm sure many of you, like me, are ready for this election season to be over. For more than a year, we've been hammered, badgered, and generally harangued with the idea of how important it is to vote. However, it's been my experience that the reasons given for our participation in the election process was more about getting their candidate elected, or more often, preventing their opponent from winning, than what actually makes voting so important. So as a day of reckoning for this crazy election cycle approaches, let's take some time and look at the importance of voting without all the political party rhetoric. So we'll do that next on the Constitution Study.
Love your neighbors and have a few good friends. Every day we're everyday Americans. Oh, every day we're everyday Americans.
Hello there, everyday Americans. Paul Engel here with the Constitution Study, where we read and study the Constitution, teach a rising generation to be free. I'm glad you could join me today. Like I said, I'm tired of this election. I'm tired of the point counterpoint, the accusations, recriminations, lies, all of it. I'm just done. And it's gone on for so long. But we keep losing this, I think, important kernel of why voting is so important, why the election process is so important, and why, even with all the political party rhetoric and nonsense, voting is still a duty we should fulfill. Now, you can find out more at the website constitutionstudy.com. I've written about how we actually elect a president and others, but I'm going to talk more about the website at the end of the episode. For now, let's answer this question of why is voting so important. Contrary to what you've heard from the politicians and the media, the several states in the United States are republics. But what does that mean? Thomas Jefferson sent a letter to John Cartwright in 1824 where he wrote, "The constitutions of most of our states assert that all power is inherent in the people. In this country, power does not come from government, not from the president, not from Congress, not even from the Supreme Court. All power is inherent in the people as an inseparable part of our being. And while the direct exercise of this power may work in small groups like families, it quickly breaks down when applied to anything larger. This is why we create governments, to exercise our power collectively. Now, how do we create governments and how do we structure them? In this country, we create governments in two ways. Sovereign governments are created by constitutions, and non-sovereign governments like counties, cities, and other municipal organizations are created by charter. In either case, a government's forming document not only creates the government, but determines its form and powers. Again, here in the United States, all sovereign governments are republics. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution states, "The United States shall guarantee to every state in this union a republican form of government." But what is a republican form of government? What makes it so special? From Webster's 1828 dictionary, we find that a republic is a commonwealth, a state in which the exercise of sovereign power is lodged in representatives elected by the people. To start with, a republican form of government recognizes not only that the power is inherent in the people, but that for them to exercise it directly would be problematic. Therefore, in a republic, the people vest or lodge their power in people they hire to represent them in government. They choose who they wish to hire collectively by voting. But why is voting so important? But first, we need to understand that while all power is inherent in the people, they rarely agree on how to use it. Even when they agree on a goal they wish to reach, the people cannot seem to agree on how to achieve that goal. This is why democracies, where the people exercise their sovereign powers directly, are so chaotic. As John Adams wrote, "Democracy, while it lasts, is more bloody than either aristocracy or monarchy." Remember, democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There is never a democracy that did not commit suicide. To separate the process of policymaking from the emotions of the masses, we have republics. Now people can choose those among them who they trust and empower them to exercise their inherent power in their name. Emotions may still run rampant about the candidates, but once chosen, it is hoped that the representatives can rise above them. Also, by using representatives to exercise our sovereign power, it is hoped they will take the time to consider and analyze prospective legislation and policies, allowing the rest of us to focus on our lives and families. However, there's nothing in the structure of a republic to prevent the representatives from becoming as emotionally driven as the people as a whole. This is why both the states and the United States are not just republics, but constitutional republics. See, constitutional republics are a variation of a republic where the powers of representatives of the people are restricted by a constitution. This constitution acts as the supreme or fundamental law, establishing limits and boundaries to what the representatives can do. We see this in both the Supremacy Clause and the 10th Amendment. The Supremacy Clause states, "This Constitution and the laws of the United States which shall be made in pursuance thereof, and all treaties made or which shall be made under the authority of the United States, shall be the supreme law of the land, and the judges in every state shall be bound thereby, anything in the constitution or laws of any state to the contrary notwithstanding." The Supremacy Clause establishes the Constitution of the United States as the supreme law of the land rather than the acts of the people's representatives. Only laws of the United States made pursuant or following that Constitution are also considered supreme. Furthermore, every judge in every state is bound to this, regardless of what any state may have in their own laws or constitution. Furthermore, the 10th Amendment states, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people." This further establishes that the powers of the United States are limited to those delegated to it by the Constitution. This means that the representatives of the people cannot act beyond the powers delegated to the government they serve in. The power to choose who will exercise power in your name is so fundamental not only to our government but to our way of life that is rightly called our civic duty. I would take it a step further and state that it is the first and primary civic duty of all American citizens. In the face of all this, why do so many people not vote? Even in presidential elections, which garner the most attention and participation, only about 2/3 of eligible voters actually cast ballots. In non-presidential elections, the rate drops to 40% or less. According to the Census Bureau, only about 70% of those eligible to vote in the 2022 election had actually registered to vote. With all that is at stake, why do so few Americans actually participate? I have a few theories why people do not vote. I believe a major reason why people do not vote is the fact that civics is no longer taught in schools. And when it was taught, voting was shown to be a duty, but not why it was so important. This seems to be the root of why so many people do not see hiring representatives as being very important. Add to that how often those representatives seem to ignore many of those they claim to represent, and you can understand why people discount the value of voting. Even worse, since most Americans were taught they were choosing leaders rather than hiring employees, they see themselves as serving those in government rather than what the framers of our government established, that they are public servants. If we the people were to come to a knowledge that we are hiring people to act in our name, perhaps we would start treating them more like the employees they are and value our say in who we hire. Another reason I hear people say they don't vote is they don't believe their vote matters. I believe this comes from a couple of different misunderstandings about our governments. Yes, a single vote in a sea of 200 million voters doesn't seem to make much difference. This comes from the fact that so many people are working so hard to focus our attention on a single race, the one for president. However, there may be dozens of races on the ballot that are far more important to your everyday life than who sits at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, at least as far as the Constitution states. Those are members of Congress, your governor and state legislature, and in many states, your judges. Don't forget county and city races as well. All of these have a greater impact on your day-to-day life than the president, not only because they are local, but because they can help protect you from the unconstitutional actions of the president, Congress, and yes, even the federal courts. The other reason so many people think their vote doesn't matter is how our state elections place a premium on the two major political parties when it comes to who appears on the ballot. How often have you been told that you have to choose the lesser of two evils? Do you know what you get when you choose the lesser of two evils? You get evil. What if our state election laws allowed someone other than the political party's chosen champions to appear on the ballot without making them jump through obstacles not placed before the favored parties. So how are those state laws going to be changed unless we hire representatives who will actually work to change them? I believe a major reason why people don't vote is apathy. More and more of the American people have become too lazy to do for themselves. They want all the benefits of living in a constitutional republic without any of their responsibilities. They are more than willing to sit back and enjoy the blessings of liberty without lifting even a finger to help secure them. Apathy and sloth are probably the chief reasons so many people do not vote. I did hear one reason why some people won't even register to vote that surprised me. They didn't want to be called for jury duty. Jury candidates are chosen from databases of citizens, as I understand it, primarily from voter registration databases. This is because you must be a citizen to be on a jury, and since being a citizen is a legal requirement to vote in all 50 states, registered voters are a good pool of people you can reasonably assume are citizens. This topic is so important that I'm doing an entire episode on the subject. With all of the reasons people have not to vote, the next logical question is, why should they? The answer is simple. If the people do not vote, then we are no longer a republic. As the number of people who actually cast ballots shrink, the United States becomes more and more an oligarchy, where a select few make decisions for everyone. And if that isn't enough to get you to vote, consider this too. Look around to the other people in your state and your district, the other people who do vote. Do you want to leave the future of your rights, your liberty, not to mention the rights and liberty of your family, in the hands of those people? Sure, your preferred candidate for president may not win. What about governor, legislator, judge, or even dog catcher? How are any of them supposed to win if the people who agree with them can't be bothered to vote? Remember, elections are how we hire people to represent us, to exercise our sovereign power in our name. Don't you want some say in who that is? Consider the words of James A. Garfield. Now more than ever before, the people are responsible for the character of their Congress. If that body be ignorant, reckless, and corrupt, it's because the people tolerate ignorance, recklessness, and corruption. If it be intelligent, brave, and pure, it's because the people demand these high qualities to represent them in the national legislature. That means that the character of Congress, that branch of the federal government whose approval rating rarely tops 20%, the branch that has borrowed the United States into de facto bankruptcy. If that group made up of politicians whose most famous trait is their ability to lie, their character is, at least in part, your fault. That's true whether you vote or not. And what is true for Congress is true for every elected office. We, the people, are responsible for their character. And to be blunt, the American people have done a horrendous job. Just look at what else Mr. Garfield said almost 150 years ago. Now, as always, Congress represents the prevailing opinions and political aspirations of the people. The widest delusions of paper money, the crudest theories of taxation, the passions and prejudices that find expression in the Senate and House were first believed and discussed at the firesides of the people, on the corners of the streets, and in the caucuses and conventions of the political parties. When we, the people, step aside, when we refuse to do more than complain about our governments, we leave no one else to establish the policies, opinions, and aspirations of this country but the political parties. By walking away from our duty to include our opinions and aspirations in the election process, we've not only failed our fellow Americans, we've been derelict in our duties. Sure, our candidates don't always win. Does that mean we give up? After 17 years trying to pass legislation banning the slave trade in America, John Quincy Adams was asked why he kept going after all those years of failure. His answer should be our siren song today. Duty is ours, results are God's. As I pointed out at the beginning, much is said to encourage, coerce, and even browbeat in the effort to get people to bother to register and vote. However, little is ever said about how we decide who to vote for. Congress is not ignorant, reckless, and corrupt because people don't vote, but because of how those of us who do vote decide who to vote for. Article 6, Clause 3 of the Constitution states, "The senators and representatives before mentioned, and the members of the several state legislatures, and all executive and judicial officers both of the United States and of the several states, shall be bound by oath or affirmation to support this Constitution. Each and every officer of both your state and the United States is required to swear or affirm that they will support the Constitution of the United States. When was the last time you asked them to prove it? When was the last time you checked to see if those exercising your power in your name actually bothered to fulfill their oath of office? And let's be honest, how many of you would even know if one of your representatives were supporting the Constitution or not? Perhaps Congress, and the rest of our governments for that matter, are ignorant, reckless, and corrupt because we, the people, are ignorant, reckless, and corrupt. After all, if you are ignorant of the power and limitations of a hired employee, how can you hold them accountable? If you are so reckless with your vote as to waste it based on race, sex, political party, or just good looks, why wouldn't they be just as reckless with the power you have entrusted with them with? Since it appears most Americans seem to vote based on who is going to give them the most filthy lucre stolen from the American people, I would say that qualifies us as being corrupt. As James A. Garfield said, if we don't like the character of our Congress, it is our fault. If we are embarrassed by the person holding the office of president, it's our fault. And the same can be said for each and every elected office in this nation. If you think you can escape responsibility by not participating, then you're not only a fool, but a deserter. The republic for which our flag stands is crumbling under the weight of collectivism, tyranny, and elitism, in no small part because the people who believe in individual rights and liberty and justice for all cannot be bothered to go to the polls every couple of years to vote. Governments have made registering to vote so simple, all you have to do is check a box when you get or renew your driver's license. Yet still millions of American citizens who are eligible to vote cannot be bothered. Each state has extended early voting to make it easier for people to work it into their busy schedules. And for those who are still unable to make those schedules, there's absentee voting. Yet we can still expect 1/3 of those eligible voters to abandon their duty and turn not only their future, but the future of their fellow Americans over to others. How can we call ourselves the land of the free if 1/3 to half of us are not brave enough to cast our vote? Voting is one of those fundamental duties of an American citizen, yet we don't really talk that way. Not in schools, not in our own backyards, not with our neighbors. It's like voting is something you have to do, and maybe if you're politically engaged, something you're excited to do. But rarely do we see it as, hey, I'm helping to hire someone to exercise my power in my name. If we don't recognize that, then how do we choose how we're going to vote for? Because right now it seems to be a beauty pageant, or it seems to be bribery, neither of which is very good for our future. If you'd like to learn more, hey, check out the Patriots program, constitutionstudy.com/patriots. We're working on education and other tools. We're looking at communications and activation. How do we protect ourselves and protect our neighbors, protect our rights? You can also work by supporting companies that support the work that we're doing, like Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, and they support organizations that protect your constitutionally protected rights, including the Constitution Study. Use the code Constitution at checkout to get free activation, but give them a try. patriotmobile.com/constitution. Also, I found this new study guide, and I got you a free lesson. Go to constitutionstudy.com/1776 study guide. That's the numerals 1776 study guide. Get a free lesson for the miracle of America. I think you'll like it. In fact, I think you'll like it so much you'll want to buy the whole package, which is just $17.76. Not a bad deal. All these are tools and resources we bring to you to help you be a better citizen, whether it's learning about the importance of voting or supporting companies that support what we believe in. Mostly, I hope you share this content, share this episode, share the work that we're doing, and hopefully come back and join us here next time for the Constitution Study.